So this is about the drying. We talked about the slow drying, and now some deeper in that part. So the outline is why to dry, drying tolerant and not tolerant seed species, types of drying methods, psychrometric chart, the moisture diffusion and drying rates, seed moisture contents, and equilibrium relative humidity. These are two different things but related, and how to analyze them. And just to remind you, in the program, so I want to finish at 11:45, so we can go to the canteen here before it is getting very busy. Yeah? So maybe I would say, sometimes I say, well, I'll come back to that question later if needed. Yeah? Okay, so I don't know if anybody has ever seen this graph, but this is already this is an old one, more than 50 years old. But it shows at the bottom the temperature and the relative humidity at the site, and what can happen if you store seeds. If they have store a high relative humidity and below zero, then you can have freezing injury. The seed dies because of that, so you should not store them at a high humidity with freezing. But if you but you see also there in the upper part, if you are above 85% relative humidity, fungi can grow on your seeds, and the bacteria. Fungi can even grow at a lower relative humidity, still grow on your seeds, and of course not when the temperature is too low. Some insects even can tolerate relative low humidities, like here at the bottom, these grain beetles. They can still survive at quite low relative humidity levels. And the higher the temperature, the shorter the seeds can stay alive. Seeds age when they are dry. They accumulate damage. Like our body is also always damaged. We get DNA damage. But this is repaired because our body is wet. But when a seed is wet, it can repair. But when a seed is dry, it cannot repair, and then damage is accumulating. And the higher the temperature, the more the damage is accumulating. So this is an old graph. What you also is we know that by several kinds of experiments, the optimal storage relative humidity is 30%, and that's why vegetable seed companies. Vegetable seeds are relatively expensive seeds. Generally, they store the seeds at 30% relative humidity. And of course, you need a warehouse. That's not the moisture content, it's relative humidity. So relative humidity here will be around 60% at the moment. I think this is not optimal for seeds, so you dry the air, and that's where you store the seeds. They have these warehouses set at 30% relative humidity. Yep. Okay. Anyhow, they need to be dried below 60% to keep them for some time. Relative humidity. It's not moisture content. I will come back to that. Yeah, and that is the difference between relative humidity and moisture content. In the seed trade, you are used to work with seed moisture content because farmers don't want to buy water, and as a seller, you don't want to have the seeds too dry because then you have to give more seeds for the same weight. So that's a challenge. But when you talk about seed quality, it is not the moisture content which is important, it is the equilibrium relative humidity. What is important because that determines the physiology. I have here an example, two seeds. One is a seed which has a 10% oil content. The other is a seed which has a 50% oil content. Water cannot be in the oil part. I just see it here like two compartments, but in fact it is in all cells as the oil droplets. I just see it as a separation. In the oil there can be no water. So all water is in the yellow part. is what we call the cytoplasm or in the endosperm. There is where is the water. And this is the amount of water there is in equilibrium with the relative humidity. If it's drier, water will evaporate, will get out of the seed, and if you put it in a more humid atmosphere, it will be absorbed. Seeds are very hygroscopic, most seeds. They absorb very easy moisture from the air. Well, the amount of water is the same in this yellow part. But if you look at the moisture content of the seed, then this is 40% moisture content, and this is 7.6% moisture content. So they are just at the edge of storage. If it is higher, then sure, I would not recommend that. And you see, and you say, well, should I store my seeds at 12% moisture content? I would say, well, I don't know if that is good. It depends on the oil content of your seeds and the type of seeds you have. So the moisture content doesn't tell me if it's safe. The relative humidity, or the equilibrium relative humidity, tells me more about if the storage environment is okay or not, if the seeds are stored safe. Because if you bring those, if you say, okay, I have my seeds at 40% moisture content, and if I store those seeds also at 40% moisture content, what will happen is that, this is the part where the water is, this is the oil. So there will be more water in there, because you bring it to 40% moisture content, and then it's in equilibrium with 96% equilibrium relative humidity. Well, then is what happens. This is what happens. So those seeds are the same, 40% moisture content and 40% moisture content. Those will not develop fungi. Within 2 weeks you have these fungi growing. Well, so that is why, as a biologist, I want to understand what is happening in a seed, what is best, what is good for the seed, and what is not good for the seed. And there are biological principles. And that's why I prefer to work with equilibrium relative humidity and not with moisture content. With equilibrium relative humidity, I can compare seeds. And with moisture content, it's not easy to compare. So I talk about wheat, is a different compared to cabbage seeds, which is much more. Yeah? Okay. Then, how deep can a seed be dried? To what relative humidity you can dry a seed? Well, most seeds, or crop seeds, we can dry. Is any of you working with a seed which cannot be dried? Which have not survived drying? No? Do somebody know seeds which do not tolerate drying?
Lychee?
Huh?
Lychee?
Yeah,
tropical species.
Huh?
Lots of tropical species.
Especially tropical tree seed species, but also coconut. Also here. Yeah, coconut indeed. Acorns. If you dry them, they die. They are not desiccation tolerant. And so these are, but indeed many tropical tree seeds have what they call recalcitrant seeds. They're called recalcitrant because they die if you dry them. And some seeds are intermediate storage behavior. You can dry them to some extent, like from citrus or coffee, and then they survive. But the previous one, they die quite quickly if you dry them. Okay, but we talk about our crop seeds, and you're not working with recalcitrant seeds, fortunately. Okay, there are different ways of drying. George, how do you dry your seeds?
Well, the first stage is drying with winter sun. We let them for 2 or 3 days so most of the moisture goes out. And then we have a dryer, but not the forced one as the big companies. It's just a big closet. It has a big vent and some heating parts. And I standardize the temperature in 22 degrees, no more.
Yeah.
Because maybe you dry them faster but I found out if you do it at 27, 28 or 30 degrees, you damage the germination, in the long term at least.
Yeah, yeah. Some other examples of drying?
We use silica gel.
Silica gel, okay, yeah. That's the bottom one, with desiccant, silica gel is a desiccant. Yeah. So this is sun and wind drying. So this is also a way of slow drying. This on the field. Yeah. So this is in the sun. Take care with the sun because it's also hot. You say, well, you take care when you with the fan and the heated air, not to go high. But if the sun is shining on this one and they are wet, the temperature easily gets at 50 degrees.
Yes.
Especially in the tropics where it is already 30 degrees during the day.
An experience here for peppers, yes. It's better when you let them out to dry the first steps, not to be in the sun. Because I measured from the sun and from the shadow. The shadow, it was at least 10% better than in the sun.
And that's because it's getting too hot. But I have another much more better way for you. I'll tell later. Yep. So, and during the night, it will cool down. So what will happen with the humidity, relative humidity in the air? We'll get 100% relative humidity. But they nicely reabsorb the moisture again.
Yeah.
So that's what you have to do during the night. You have to cover them or away. So this is the sunflower hanging down. Also there it is important to have protection from the sun. It can be hot in there, and of course protection from the rain. This is the shade drying.
Is it the sun part only because of the temperature, or also because of the UV?
UV can have also effect. Yeah. It depends how exposed the seeds are. And if there is UV protection on the outside of the
because my
seed.
feeling was it was not only the temperature with the sun, it was also the radiation.
Can be UV radiation as well. Yeah, well, this is a fan moving through a crate with seeds in there, and indeed this is with unheated air, but you can also, very sophisticated systems, heat the air. There are different ways to heat the air. But like George was telling, I think it's very important to keep notice of the temperature, especially when the seeds are humid still, not wet, but even humid. They deteriorate quite fast when the temperature is high.
And we did, I'm sorry to interrupt all the time here. We did several experiments about the time. And another reason that we don't go in a higher level of the temperature is that I found out if you dry a pepper from, for example, 50% content to 80% content in a day, it makes more damage to the seed than if you do it in 3 days. To do it in 3 days, you take the temperature lower, so 22, 23, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to take more period for the seed to get dry.
Yeah.
It goes for the other way around also. When it's very dry and then you make it very humid quickly, then it does these cracks in the seed and it damages. So you need also more time for it.
Yeah.
And also, indeed, when you have a big seed and we dry fast, then the outside cells they shrink, and then you get easier cracks. Yeah, especially with beans can be quite a problem. Yeah. Okay, so this is with conditioned air, so not heating the air to reduce the relative humidity, but removing the water with kinds of filters. That's a possibility. Well, this is working with forced air, large volumes. So this is, for instance, what they use also with Waxwan and talk about vegetables. These big volumes also, medium-sized volumes and smaller sized volumes. You can even go lower if you use silica gel. It's really small volumes. This is the psychrometric charge. Any of you heard about it? before. Okay. So what you see here is below is the temperature. And here the lines are, the red lines is the relative humidity. So I will show you what to do. This chart you can use to say, okay, my relative humidity outside is at the moment, let's say 80%. But to dry the seeds, I need to go to 30%. That's what I want. So how much should I heat the air to go from 80 to 30% relative humidity? That's what you can use your chart. Or you say, okay, well, what will the relative humidity be if I heat to, outside at the moment it's 10 degrees, what will the relative humidity, I heat it up to 20 degrees, because that's the maximum I can take, or 25 degrees. That's what you can use with this chart. And you can find them on the internet and print them, and I show you how it works. So the question is, you have air outside 15 degrees, 80% relative humidity, and you want 30% relative humidity. So how much should you heat the air to get that relative humidity? Okay, well, we start at 15 degrees and 80% relative humidity. You see the red line is the 80%, and we start at 50. So there is where that is the point. We start with the outside air, and then we want to go to 30% relative humidity, to go to that line. Yeah, okay, what is then the temperature? We need to heat from 15 to around 32%, to 30 degrees Celsius. So that is how you read this. It's not very difficult. It's just you have to go from one line to the other line and see how it works. And other example, heating from 30 degrees, you have 30 degrees and 80% relative humidity, and then you want to go to 30% relative humidity. Like this is typical for the tropics. So what happens there? There you start at 30%, 80% relative humidity, and you want to go to 30. And you see that in the tropics, you really, I don't know if you want that, but you should go to 48 degrees Celsius. Well, that is killing your seeds, especially if they are humid. So that makes it in the tropics very difficult to do seed drying there with outside air. Okay, so another one, cooling. So we have, let's say you have air which is 20 degrees Celsius, 30% relative humidity, and you open the door of your refrigerator so the air enters. In the refrigerator, what will be the humidity in your refrigerator? That's what you can calculate with this. So we have 20 degrees at 30% relative humidity. We go down to 5 degrees. Okay, that is 5 degrees. And then you see that you are at a line of 80% relative humidity. So if you say, well, okay, I dry my seeds, they are nicely dried at 30% relative humidity. And I have learned that to store seeds longer, I have to store them also dry and cool. So I put them just in the refrigerator. They're nicely dried, I put them in the refrigerator. Well, what will happen? You put them in the refrigerator with a high humidity. They will absorb moisture again. So you can store them in the refrigerator, but then you have to pack them hermetically. That's the only way, not like this, not open.
There is a question here now.
Yeah.
Do the seeds need air to breathe, or you can store them in closed bags or in empty space anywhere, without air?
Right, are you talking about a dry seed or a moist seed?
Dry seed.
What do you think? Who can answer this?
Nitrogen.
Does a seed need oxygen? So can you store a seed under nitrogen? Without oxygen,
Well,
does it
without
survive?
without
Dry
air.
seed, does it survive?
Without air at all.
Who thinks it survives?
I would say yes.
I want to see hands. Who thinks it survives? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Who thinks it does not survive?
It's a little bit.
You think a little bit.
I
in
don't raise
between.
hand because I asked the question.
Sorry.
Well, I think the question is, I also received the question like putting seeds in a hermetical situation when you put it in the fridge, and then people think the seeds suffocate at one point. So I tell them jokingly, so you just have to open the lid every second week. But the question is still pertinent because for me it's a good question. But still, I couldn't say yes they survive, no they don't survive. So I would like to have an answer from your side.
I will come back to this. I have it in my presentation.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. It's a very good question, and I asked that question 15 years ago to the seed companies also, and they could not answer that. So I did experiments. And I will show you the results.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't tell them.
Okay.
No spoiler. Okay. Drying with absorbers. Yeah. So that very well-known absorber is to dry silica gel. That's quite often used. Salts can also be used. You know that salt attracts water, and depending on the type of salt, you get it absorbs moisture till it is wet, and then you get a certain relative humidity above the salt. And for table salt, sodium chloride, it is 75% relative humidity, and for calcium chloride, it is 32% relative humidity. There is a temperature effect, but this is at room temperature. This is 32 or 65. Drying beads. These are these drying beads. Have somebody seen these before?
I
I'll
haven't
show you
heard and
this,
I would like to
huh?
purchase it, but because we also use silica gel, but even the most modern ones are a bit still harmful, so I would like to buy these, but I...
You will do this afternoon, start experiments with these.
Ah.
Yeah.
Did you
These
try?
this
Not yet,
is a
because
type
yeah.
of clay, special type of clay material, which has pores in which a water molecule fit very tight. Only a water molecule. It is used also for producing bioethanol. You know, ethanol also attracts water. That's why you get 96% as the maximum purity normally, if it's absorbing water from the air. But it's not good for your car if you want to run your car on bioethanol. So they remove the last part of water with these beads. And a friend of mine, which I have established this International Seed Academy, he introduced these drying beads for drying seeds. Some you can even use dry rice. So if you have rice, you warm it up in the oven to dry it, and then you can put your dry rice with your to dry your seeds. If it's small amounts of seeds, you could do that. Silica gel is more, I think it's more useful. Silica gel is, well, these are the packages. If you buy shoes, often there is such a package with there. You can buy silica gel also with a color indicator in it, and the color changes with the relative humidity, so you know when to regenerate it. In the past, I don't know, maybe George remembers it, and Frank also, we had blue color silica gel. And that contains cobalt. In the European Union, we are not longer allowed to use this because it's a heavy metal. So it had one advantage. This with the cobalt, you could heat it to a higher temperature to regenerate. This you have to take care not to go above 100 degrees in the oven. takes a
I
little
read
while.
that it's still toxic in a way that if you inhale, if you work a lot with it, and this, yeah, if you inhale it, it's still not healthy.
Okay.
I don't know. I was reading it
Okay, that
in
can
an
be, yeah.
article
Yeah.
about seed drying. Yeah.
So take care. Well, these are these drying beads. And we will work with this, but this is for George. I told him to solution for drying his pepper seeds. So in Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, you have tomato seed producers, mostly are small farmers. They produce the tomato seeds. So conventional farmers. So they clean the seeds with hydrochloric acid, and at the end of the day, they have wet seeds cleaned. And then they have to dry them in the tropics, which is not so easy. What they have is a drum, like this. And this is how it looks from the inside. So they have in here a big sieve with drying beads. So what the farmers do, in the end of the day, they have these tomato seeds. They have centrifuged it to remove the loose water.
Yes.
And this bag they just drop in the bin. In the bin, it's a very low humidity because of these drying beads, about 10% humidity. So they dry during the night, and next day they put again, and once a week the seed company comes to collect the seeds, and they are dry.
And where you can get these drying beads?
But there is Central Europe also. But yeah, so this is it has. You can do it also with silica gel, but silica gel and drying beads work differently. Silica gel absorbs moisture till it is in equilibrium. So if I put silica gel in here in a box, and it absorbs moisture in equilibrium, and when I bring it to a low relative humidity, it evaporates some of the water again. Drying beads, they keep absorbing till they are saturated. So with drying beads, you can go to a lower humidity level, but you need to have enough quantity. Once they have absorbed all the water, they will not work anymore.
And you have to throw them away, or you can dry them?
No, that's
You can dry them.
what the seed company, they collect the bin with the beads. They put the beads in the oven
And then they dry it again.
to dry again,
And
and put in the bin,
use it again.
and the bin goes to the farmer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
But how is that different in the sense that the silica will go until everything is at the same humidity,
Yeah.
and these ones, yes, will saturate? Okay.
Yeah, it absorbs, it is 10%, absorbs till it is saturated.
Depending on the quantity, they either.
Yeah, so you need, yeah, so it's best to use a high, in that system, to use a high quantity of beads. Yeah.
And then you have to, how to say, to mix the seeds.
No,
Or
in this bin,
without
in
doing
the
that.
bin it's 10% relative humidity. So then you add
I mean,
your,
okay for the seeds that they are close to the bin, but for
Or
the
they-
seeds that they
maybe-
are all around.
maybe, well, this is maybe too much. This is just, this is not the tomato seeds in the bag, but, and maybe this is too much volume, depending on how dry they are, if you
Yes.
put in, but this is the principle, is that you can dry them, and they, in the tropics, the temperature is around 30 degrees.
Yes.
So it's better to dry them quick. And in your summer also, the temperature is high in Greece.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's the drying beads. Another way is with, and we will work on this afternoon, is this is a salt solution we have here. We have a tray with a salt solution. We have a box which can be closed. We have here a computer fan, laptop fan. So that is moving the air over the salt solution and creating a certain relative humidity in the box. And if I use sodium chloride, the humidity will be around 75%. And if I use calcium chloride, the humidity will be around 32%. So this is also a way with moving air for small seed samples and for research purposes sometimes. But this is a very simple system to have a fixed relative humidity because of the salts. Yeah?
Why did you make this?
What?
Why did you make this setup like this?
Well, we want for our experiments to equilibrate seeds at a certain relative humidity to see, for instance, what's the effect on shelf life. So then this is a system where you can dry. And with the fan, the advantage is that the air is moving, so that goes faster. So that's the main reason why we have this computer fan. I think 25 years ago there was we had a collaboration with Burkina Faso, and in our lab we have a cabinet controlled where we can put 30% relative humidity in that cabinet. We can set it also at other relative humidities, but it's quite an expensive. It's about 10,000 euro that such a cabinet to have that controlled. Moreover, you need maintenance, so this was not so easy to bring to Burkina Faso.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is we took a refrigerator. We took, in the bottom of the refrigerator, we put a box with calcium chloride and a fan to move the air. So they got a refrigerator, which they could also, if you take a wine, we used a wine cooler at that time, because they could also do a higher temperature. So also there for the research, they could have 20 degrees Celsius and 32% relative humidity to bring the seeds for their research to a certain relative humidity. And a wine cooler is the same principle as a refrigerator, and in Burkina Faso they know very well how to repair the refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but this is the principle. Moisture migration. So that is important. If you have a big seed, it takes time for water to move from the core to the outside. You can put a very low relative humidity here, but time is needed to move. And of course that goes faster with a higher temperature than with a lower temperature, but that takes time. This is if you do seed pelleting. Also there you have the water that has to move. There is a distance. The small seed, it goes fast. So so that takes time, and that makes it also, if you do drying, to do it not continue with your drying, but take your seeds, dry for an hour, put it aside, try your other batch of seeds, and your first batch has the time for the water to migrate from the inside to the outside. That's more energy efficient if you do it batch-wise to market. So one not continue, of course it will dry, but it needs a lot of energy, and it's more energy efficient if you do it, if you let the water take time to migrate. You don't believe it?
You just answered the question I had in my mind, and the problem I couldn't find the answer for years.
It's so simple.
I noticed once that, anyway, in order for us to dry the seeds, we put them in plates like this, yes, and we put something like 2 or 3 centimeters of seed.
Yeah.
Holes all around from the ground, so the air can... What I found out is that if you go for 6 hours, for example, in the dryer, okay, you take the seed out, you put it in a bag, you let it for the next day, and you do it the next day, you find out that it's already more dried without it in the bag, and I couldn't answer this. My assumption was that okay, the air does not get through all the seed, but at the seed only at the surface.
Yeah.
So when you put it in the bag, because the seeds are mixed, so from one seed with bigger humidation gives to the other seed that is more dried some humidation.
Yeah.
But it was not that, it was this you said. It
Yeah.
goes from this side out.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Happy, you can go. You have what you paid for. Okay, let's see the time. Yeah, 5 minutes. And yeah. Okay. So the rate of drying depends on also on the temperature, like I said. So this is the 60 degrees, that is the bottom, and 40 degrees is the top. So water, that also has to do with migration. Just if you do it at the same relative humidity. So it goes faster, and the seeds evaporate the water faster if it's a higher temperature. It's not that you should use that high temperatures, but it is an effect. And take care what it is. Okay, then the equilibrium relative humidity. How to measure that? This is also equipment we have in our lab. Is you put your seeds in this small cubicle, this small box where you put the seeds. You close it. There's a rubber ring, and the seeds will evaporate water or absorb water from the air which is above it, and then it measures the relative humidity of the air. It takes some time, but this is how you measure the equilibrium relative humidity of your seed cell. You understand or not? Yeah? So, and this is what they call water activity, because in food science they work with water activity. In food science they do not work with moisture content, because food is often a mixture of different materials, and they work with, they call it water activity. And in fact, water activity is the same as relative humidity, only just relative humidity is in percentages. Yeah. And this is non-destructive, so you measure what is the relative humidity of your seeds. And if you want to know the moisture content, you can draw a line in which you can make a calibration curve. And then you say, okay, if the relative humidity is 60%, then the moisture content is 40, because you have made that line before. And it's faster than doing a moisture content determination, which we will start also today. That equipment I showed is expensive, but do you need that accuracy? Do you really want to know 1%? No. And I asked you to bring seeds, and you will also measure the equilibrium relative humidity. Just simple thing, you use a relative humidity meter, put it in a glass jar, close it, and measure what is the relative humidity. The accuracy is not as good as that equipment, but this costs maybe €10, such one. And the water activity meter, that's around, it's more than €1,000 to have that. This is, for most purposes, this works quite well and good enough. Okay, so this is, you can also put it in a box. So you see here in the box, and here it is 20, and in this box it is 90% relative humidity. Well, you know that those, in a few days, those will form fungi, and those are much more safe. Okay, then traditionally is the measurement of the amount of water and the weight, but that is destructive. So what you do is that's what you will do this afternoon. So you take a metal container, you weigh it, you put your seeds in there, you weigh again, so you know exactly how much seeds did I put in, fresh seeds. You put it in the oven for a certain time, and officially it's 103 and 17 hours. Then you take it out of the oven, you let it cool in such a way that it cannot reabsorb humidity from the air, and then you weigh again, and then you know the dry weight, and then you calculate it. This is a destructive, also destructive. So if you have limited amount of seeds, this takes seeds, so that's a pity. There are alternative methods, but also there you need equipment. So capacitance, so how much electricity can it take? Near infrared measures also how much water is there, but you need also there this calibration for your seeds, and those are also non-destructive. So that's but you need more equipment. So the most simple is this relative humidity meter. Okay, well, dry below 65% relative humidity, better till 30%, but if you work with wheat, that's quite expensive if you want to do that. So how deep you dry depends on the volume, economics, equipment you have, the energy, and weather conditions, like in the tropics. It's really a challenge. But it is very important if you want to store your seeds, if you want to keep them, make them dry and keep them dry. I have been teaching at the rice department in Thailand. They nicely dry the seeds with 12% moisture content, and subsequently they store them in a warehouse in woven bags. The warehouse is not completely closed. So the humidity from the outside air, especially during the night, 100% moves in, and the seeds take up moisture, and after half year, the germination declines to 80%. And it's really a pity. There are solutions for that, and that I will tell this afternoon. So, what we discussed, why to dry. We talked about tolerant and recalcitrant, so the tolerant is called orthodox. We talked about different seed drying methods, the psychrometric chart, moisture diffusion and drying rates, seed moisture content versus equilibrium relative humidity, and methods to measure these. And now it's time, I think.
I can tell you another method. It's not applicable, but it's applicable. It's applicable maybe to your farmers because
Yeah. Okay,
it
well,
doesn't need any money.
Yes. Okay.
So when I started the company that is 33 years ago, no money at all, I had to dry the seeds and to know when it's good to store. Yes. Unfortunately, I lose this capacity now. I lost it during the years. But if you take a seed, any seed, a pepper, a tomato, a bean or whatever, most of the seeds, you put it on your mouth and you crack it. Okay? If you break the seed without hear anything in your mouth, it's still wet. It has to make crack. When it makes crack, and for example, the pepper, the seed is like this, yes?
It's flat.
If you put your teeth here, when the seed is wet, the seed is going like this, it doesn't make crack. It's made like this. Then it starts.